Live from the Cactus Creek at Ibri, he is the king of prime time, Ghana's undisputed entertainment laureate, and still the youngest old man in Ghana. Put your hands together, show some love for the indefatigable KSM.
The KSM Show.
Hello. I am very excited for this show, mostly because, we are in an election season. And so my guests that come on the show will reflect certain things that we need to know and understand for this election season. And my guest today, I guess he's the guru, And I will admit, folks, those of you who have watched my other program called Talk Shop, I bashed this man. Not him. I bashed him, and I bashed the whole group of people he represents. Who am I talking about? The Peace Council. My fellow respected members of the Ghana Peace Council, and I really do mean that. You are all respected members of the Ghana Peace Council. But I'm putting you in the line of fire today because, we only hear of you just when it's a few months to the election. And so today I have a few things to tell you, my dear Peace Council. Number one, you are not a proactive Peace Council at all. That's when it's a few months to the election. That's the only time you come alive. As you came alive a few months ago and said you need $1 billion. All this time, why you doing? And then a few months to the election, you come and you need $1 million or whatever you need it for. I think it's quite unfortunate. But you cuddle up with the powers that be. Whichever government is in power that hires you as the Peace Council, you cuddle up to them. You are afraid to speak truth to power. All you know how to do is to cuddle with whichever government has placed you in power. And folks, this nonsense must stop. I bashed them. I bashed Reverend Dr. Ernest Edwin on my platform. And I said, look, you Peace Council, in between the 4 years, when it's coming to election, then you come and make the day small. What are you, and things like that, But give me a little bit of time to introduce this gentleman, But let me say this, Most people hear you bashing them and their reaction is like, what do you know? They may even get hostile. This man didn't. I was there, no, he gave me a call. He says, KSM, have you said this and this and that? I said, oh, yeah, you people, where have you been? Man, ding. He said, calm down. So he started to explain certain things to me about the Peace Council and everything that I didn't know he was telling me. And I said, but why are you so quiet? I was actually lobbying that maybe they can hire me as the PRO for the council, show me some love. But anyway, let me shut up. I just wanted to set the background. He's here today. He's the chairman of the Ghana Peace Council, and we're going to have a chat with him to get to him to answer the most frequently asked questions of the Ghana Peace Council and the misunderstandings of the Ghana Peace Council. Show some love, ladies and gentlemen, for Reverend Dr. Ernest Edwin. Yeah, there we go. Reverend, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Very good to have you.
Good to see you.
Please.
Thank you very much.
Please have a seat.
Right.
Yeah, Revo is in that. You know me, I call the Reverends Revo. It feels easier for me to call them as Revo. So Revo is in the house. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, what is the Ghana Peace Council? Obia has an opinion. He's here himself from the horse's own mouth. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The KSM Show.
Is it the luxurious rooms? Or the serene green surroundings? Is it the tempting swimming pool? Or the classy conference room, or the cute gift shop. Maybe it's our chef's array of cooking delights. Whichever way, it's all about Cactus Creek, a most respected hotel. 055 039 5007.
The KSM Show.
My name is Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. I have almost been following the program of KSM for the past 20 years. It's a program I've always been watching carefully. In fact, before he came on Pan-African, he used to be on another station, I can't remember now, where the program had been so interesting. And I will call on all Ghanaians who are very much interested in objectivity and also the history of this country to always watch this program. It's a program that is educative and very, very, very interesting. Thank you.
We're back, and I'm so happy to be here. Reverend, once again, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for
And because you're going to come on the show, I took some time to do just a little bit of reading, which I should have done long ago anyway. Then I realized you have some amazing background in music and entrepreneurship, but we'll get to that later. Right now, what's in the line of fire is the Peace Council.
Right.
You know, and most of the accusations, I must admit I've been one of them, that in between the 4 years, the Peace Council is practically dead. When the election is coming, then they come, we have realized we need $1 million.
In dollar terms, we need $1 million US to be able to execute all the things we want to do for the elections.
And then, we bash. So I'm glad that you have come here today to answer some of the most frequently asked questions and where we are wrong so that we can understand, so that we can, you do peace building, so we can have, we can have some peace building between the Peace Council and the media. Where are we getting it wrong?
Right. I think that most people don't follow what the Peace Council does. And so we get all this bashing left and right. But let me go back to the last 4 years. Immediately after the last election, the first encounter we had was the disturbance in Parliament when they were choosing the speaker and all the things that happened. I was in bed at 4 a.m. when I got a call. Somebody called and said, "Chairman, where are you?" I said, "I'm in bed." Said, "Have you seen what's happening in Parliament?" I said, "No, I'm asleep." So I just switched on my TV and saw all the things going on. We had to immediately provide some form of intervention. So we had to shuttle between the majority leader, minority leader, in between to try and help tone down some of these things. And after that, we met with the speaker himself, and we made them aware that our role is not to intervene in the affairs of Parliament. But when it goes beyond a certain level, there was a need for the Peace Council to step in. I think that after those things, we saw a little bit of quiet in that space. So that work was done. Then we also noticed what happened in some constituencies where people died. The Peace Council hasn't got the power to arrest, neither do we have the power to prosecute per the Act at 818 that established the council. But we went into all those constituencies where people died and held dialogue in those constituencies.
Specifically,
Techiman, Ododio, Savlugu, and all of them. We were in all those places.
You went there?
Yeah, we went there. We spent time there.
And what was the nature of the discussion?
The one was to help the communities to heal because people had died, to commensurate with their families, and then also help the community to heal. Also to understand what happened in those constituencies and why those things happened. Now, this whole activity gave us some information. After that, in July of 2021, we called for a national dialogue involving everybody involved in Ghana's election. The majority leader, the minority leader, the general secretary, the chairman of NDC, NPP, the other parties.
You called
all of them. The Minister for National Security, Minister for Interior, Minister for Communications. We had civil society. We had the security services, the police, the army, and all of that. All of us, including academia. And then Electoral Commission. They were represented by Dr. Sribuo and Dr. Bosman. We brought the judiciary in. They were represented by the current Chief Justice. He wasn't the Chief Justice at the time, so he was representing them, and several of us. This project was funded by the Commonwealth. So the Secretary General of the Commonwealth herself was here. All of us left Accra and went to Adan for 4 days.
And the
to discuss the whole thing about Ghana's election, all the things that happened, why they happened, what do we do to ensure that none of those things happen again. So we spent 4 days analyzing all of these things. After that, there was a roadmap set, and institutions were given specific assignments to execute. Majority of assignments were given to the Peace Council. As I speak to you now, everything that we were assigned to do has been accomplished.
Can you give me some of what
One
you're supposed to do?
Was to ensure that we bring NDC back to IPAC. It took us 3 years to do that negotiation. We started with the old administration, Sidin Katia, Ofoso Ampofo, Freddie Blay, and his team. We went forward and backwards, forward and backwards. Last year, December, we were able to conclude that. So NDC now goes back to IPAC. There was a need for us to look at adjudication of parliamentary elections. Presidential, now we put a time limit. Parliamentary is not. So what do? We had negotiations with the outgone Chief Justice. We followed up with the current Chief Justice. Now certain rules have been set. We all agreed that we can't operationalize those things for this election. But after this election, we're going to make sure that all those things come in. So we had another conference with the judiciary, with the parties, represented by their legal teams, both NDC, NPP, all the minor parties, we brought CSOs, we brought the diplomatic community, all of us in Fiesta Royal. We spent a whole day. The judiciary brought all the reforms they want to introduce. We all discussed them. We all agreed that we can't implement them for this election. Immediately after the election next year, we are going to roll out those so that by 2028, all those issues will be resolved. And the goal is to shift the election probably to November to ensure that we have 2 months to resolve all issues about disputes. By the time the president is sworn in on the 7th of January, he has a full complement of people to choose his ministers so that we don't have all those delays. These are issues that...
So the swearing in, the
yes,
date release and change.
That's,
but the voting, you want to bring it earlier.
We want to bring it earlier. So those are things that we've agreed on, but then we've held on to these things that after the election we'll bring them back. And several other issues that were brought to us. As a result of this dialogue, we held a first dialogue between the security services, the political parties, and civilians. We took all of them to Koforidua for 2 days. For civilians to talk about how they feel about the security services during the electoral processes, how the parties feel about them. We spent 2 days. The security service also spoke about what they think about us. We had this very interesting dialogue. After that, we held another dialogue between the parties and the police alone in Pram Pram. Took them out for 2 days.
All the parties.
All the parties.
The Peace Council.
The Peace Council and the police.
Service.
And the police.
The police.
Yes, so that they talk among themselves. It was interesting to hear from the police at that meeting that sometimes they are much more lenient towards the opposition parties than the party in government. We sat by, all of us were there. We saw all those things. So a lot of these things have been done to ensure that these things help us to navigate through so we don't have a lot of problems. Again, the parties also indicated that IEA used to have a forum for them where they used to meet to discuss issues among themselves. So they wanted the Peace Council to come in and set up something for them. Since last year, we've had a meeting for the parties where we meet every quarter. Either we are providing training for them, or we are discussing issues, or we are moving from one step to the other. Consistently, we've been doing that. As a result of this.
What kind of training are you giving the parties And you're talking about every quarter you
Every
meet?
quarter, yes. We've done training on ADR for them to understand how to handle their own internal issues. Because sometimes even the primaries, we have issues with them, and some of them come to us. So we teach them how to handle their own internal conflicts and all of those things. And when we finish, they all realize that they should have had this kind of training way before this time. So talking about how do you handle all these internal conflicts. For instance, CPP, for instance, told us at that meeting that if we had done this training for them, they wouldn't have been in court. Because there were easier methods to deal with internal problems than what was happening. So we've done all of these things for them. In addition to that, as soon as the government appoints DCs and MMDCs, we also provide training for them because they handle the dissects and the musics. So they need to understand how to be sensitive in relation to conflict and when they sit on these councils, how to manage them. Currently, we've trained 150 MMDCs in how to resolve conflict and how to deal with some 150 of them. Then we come to some of our own internal activities. We dealt with the vigilantism activities culminating in the signing of the vigilantism bill. And then there are post activities that we've been engaging in. As a result of that, we've been doing a lot of work around the northern part of our country, ensuring that our borders are secure, people understand some of these things, and then between vigilantism and violent extremism, all these things are being done. We've done training for GPRTU so that they also become observant when they are on the roads. They should be able to identify something, the slogan, see something, say something. It comes up. They pick people from different places. They should be able to identify, is this guy correct? Is something going on? We've done training for queen mothers. We've done training for student leaders, one for the north, one for the south. We've done training for fisher folks, one in Adan, one in Elmina. They go to the high seas. They must see, if they see something, they should be able to tell us something. So while we are protecting the northern border, we are also looking at our southern borders, what happens in some of those areas. So these are activities that have been ongoing. And because they are not political, nobody talks about them. We just provide the training, we do some of these things, we equip them. In terms of violent extremism, currently we are working in all the 5 northern regions because we have to be sure that our people understand these things so that infiltrators don't come in through the north and cause destabilization across the country. So these are some of the major things we have been doing. Maybe a few others will come up.
Yeah. And thank you very much. Like you're saying that maybe some of the things are not as politically charged and therefore not as newsworthy. So let me quickly just jump onto some of the things that are politically charged and find out how the Peace Council is dealing with those issues. Then we can come back. For example, West Wuogon, and there was an Emil Short commission, and they came out with a report which they say the president didn't even look at or looked at but didn't address. Is there anything that the Peace Council should have done to maybe call the president to address these issues or change whatever, or the Peace Council this is not your domain?
One of the things that the council is required to do by the act is also to advise government. So sometimes we pick feedback from what people are saying, what is happening, and then we provide feedback. This is what we are hearing. What can you do about it? No, that is the way. But we can't force anybody. The law, the act doesn't give us the power to instruct the president. That doesn't give us power to arrest. It doesn't give us power to prosecute. Ours is to advise. And so occasionally we draw attention to concerns that are in the public domain, not only to the president, but even to the EC. All the things people talk about, we have occasional meetings with the EC. And we draw the attention to these things. Look, these people are saying this, people are saying this. Can you look at these things? And you'll see that the last few weeks, things are changing. And it's because we are increasing our engagement. We see something, we hear something, we draw the attention to it. Can you look at some of these things? These are the concerns of the public. We have no control over you because you are an independent institution. But once we hear something, we'll let you know.
Okay. So you inform them
That's right.
of what the situation is on the ground, but you don't have the power to do anything else.
That's right.
The perception of the EC is that she's very stubborn and and I don't want to put you on the spot, but you say you are meeting constantly with the EC. What are you getting? Are you getting that kind of cooperation that you expect? Or?
I think so. We do get a lot of cooperation. I mean, a lot of feedback. In fact, for most of the releases that they put out, sometimes we get it first before even the public sees it. You know, because we constantly, once we see and hear something, we talk about it. But besides that, we have a rep who sits in IPAC. The Peace Council has somebody always in IPAC meetings since last year. And so we know firsthand what is going on there. So when the public is making the noise, we know exactly what happened. And the parties may come out and say something else, which may be totally different from exactly the reality. But we know the reality. So sometimes we just keep quiet and watch them because we know that they must know what it is.
Have you ever thought that what information any party is putting out is so wrong that we should step in and correct the perception they're putting out there, or the decision is that let's back off?
Well, we don't regulate them except from our own criteria. They cross a certain line. You know, the last 2 years we've developed what we call the guidelines on hate speech and intemperate language. And when we did that, we launched it. We did it with Media Commission and Media Foundation for West Africa. You know, put up that whole document together. We launched it, gave it to the media, to the political parties to know what to say, what not to say, the effect of what you say, and all of those things. So we have criteria to determine when boundaries are crossed. There are certain things we see them as just political talk. Right. So people say certain things, everybody's crying, but we have a criteria to determine whether this is it. Secondly, we work closely with Media Foundation for West Africa and Fact Check Ghana. So sometimes we receive clips, and once we receive the clip, we'll send it to them and say, we've seen this document or this information. What is it? Can you give us details? They go back, they will find the original thing, they'll find the context, they will do everything, and then they will report back to us. These are the facts. And so we know sometimes, people can doctor things and do all kinds of things and put information out. The public is crying. But by the time you go behind the scene, it's totally different. But once they cross the line, we then call their attention to it. So you made this statement on the political platform. We don't think it's appropriate. And in most cases, by the time we call them, they will apologize. We agreed that sometimes they'll give you some reasons why they did what they did and all of those things,
I won't mention any names, but there's been some very, very, for example, fiery talk on campaign platforms. Very, very fiery talk about what will happen when the election, we won't hand over or we won't sacrifice our peace. You've heard some very fiery statements.
The NPP would not sacrifice this election on the altar of peace.
Me am Gina Hedi. So far as I live, me dey been break 8 bia o. To me no, me say me mfa ma wo mo ne, me mfa ma wo mo china.
NDC mpanyinfo no. Say yenti ase. Say me say me jam echi e ma wo. Oliver bebe tu we konya no so afi na me ba be mpo no ba be sira konya no so emba so na emba so kira.
When this happens, that's when the public gets alerted. Hey, then they make question, where's the Peace Council? You are saying you hear all of these things and you deal with them?
Yeah, we do. We call them. Some of them are invited to our meetings, to our office. By the time they come in, chairman, this one is a political talk. We didn't mean it. And, politicians are very interesting guys, It's not that there are reasons for, sometimes, let's say one party has become too quiet, they need to stir up their people, so they go and put something in there just to make sure that their people are fired up. So they come here, it's not
the citizens get all fired up. Where's the Peace Council?
Yeah. So we sit back, we know what they are doing, and it's a game. To them, it's a game, And sometimes they do all kinds of funny things. We look at them, but we've already said that once you cross a certain line, and we know that this is going beyond what it ought to be.
What would you consider that the line has been crossed? for example?
For instance, if somebody says anything like, I'll kill you, or will kill people, or there will be bloodshed, those things we realize that it's going beyond a certain level, and there's a need for some intervention.
Oh, very interesting. So basically, I remember when we had our conversation and you asked me about some 7 hot spots that hit non-political, and everybody was talking about it, but it quietly died down. Use Wesley Girls as an example. And you're asking me, when things just stir up and they die down slowly, am I aware that the Peace Council, most of the time, is behind this working?
Yeah. So you see, a lot of things happen in the country. It's high tension, suddenly it drops, and then everybody becomes quiet. Nobody is asking questions, how did it happen? But once you see that, you must be mindful of the fact that Peace Council has done a lot of work, both at the national level, at the regional levels. You know, a lot of conflicts are being handled day in and day out. At our last review meeting last month, we have about 703 cases that we are handling.
703.
Right. Covering land litigation, chieftaincy, tribal conflicts, resource conflict, galamsey that we are talking about, we are now dealing with, but we have seen issues around this already, you know. Then we have religious conflicts, we have political conflicts, and then there are some we place as other. Some occasionally you get 1 or 2 things like somebody writes to us that NAM1 has taken their money, what is the Peace Council doing? Those things will come in. That's right.
Okay.
So occasionally you get some of those one-off things. So political conflicts is the least. Out of the 703, only 24 are political.
Really?
Yeah. Majority of the cases we are dealing with has to do with land, chieftaincy, and tribal conflicts. If you look at Boko, for instance, we haven't given up on Boko. Now tensions have gone down, so everybody thinks that it's all over. But we are still there, working there. Tripoli, we've been there. Kandiga Doba case, close to Boko, we were there trying to resolve those. Alavanyo in Konya came up a little bit, we've been able to quieten it. Secessionist group, it came up so heavy before the last election. What have we done? We were in 16 communities in the Volta region. Spent time there with chiefs, tribal leaders, religious leaders, community groups, youth groups, in 16 communities between Volta and Oti. We spent close to 3 months there. We did a documentary on the whole project to hear why people in the Volta region feel that they are marginalized. So we had to go to them to listen to them. And then we shared all kinds of things. Some of them, we came out, we did a documentary, we gave a full report to national security to tell them this is what we have discovered. Take the information and do whatever you want to do with that. They spoke about roads. Now you notice that a lot of roads in the Volta region are being tackled now. It's coming out of this dialogue to hear the concerns. This year, you notice that nobody is talking seriously about security. People have been taken to the Volta region, banning people from voting and all those things. These were concerns that were raised. Now nobody is talking about it. So when you see some of these things, people wonder why things are happening the way it is. But you must understand that Peace Council has been there to do all those things, to help us to understand the thinking of the people, why they feel the way they feel, what can we do about it. They felt that they were not getting their share of the national cake. Is it true? Is it not true? You discuss all these things. You present the report to the government and tell them, look, this is what we found. What can you do about some of these things? So these are ongoing projects. You heard about Ajinasari and Nogopo. You know, now it goes up, suddenly dies, and people think that it just died. Peace Council were there.
Were there too?
Yeah, oh yes, we were there. You know, so we go in there, and you know, for each event, depending on what we want to do, we determine what is the best approach. Because the act that established the council says that we must facilitate and develop mechanisms for conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and conflict management for sustainable peace in Ghana. And we always look at the word sustainable peace. Ours is not just a fire service. There's fire, cool it. How do we ensure that there's sustainable peace? So we take time to deal with some of the issues. So when the public is looking for just a condemnation, that's not the way we look at it. How do we ensure that this guy who said this or did this will not do it again? So you bring him to that space where he understands the gravity of what I said, its implications, what it means to the country, and the reason why I should not do it again. If we're able to get the person to understand that, then you are building sustainable peace. So ours is not just fire service. Somebody says, hey, shut up, I condemn. You condemn the person, what do you get out of it? You haven't solved the problem. So we go down to make sure that the people understand what it is. And we have the right to co-opt other people, use other institutions to help us to do the work. And so for Nogopo, for instance, we use one of our own members to lead. We use Numo Blafo, the third, Omar
Okay.
Yeah, because he's a traditional leader, he understands their language. So Numo led the process. We stayed back. If the pastors like me go there, you are part of Ajana Sare. So depending on what the situation is, we determine what strategy is the best to deal with those issues. Yeah.
You being chairman, what has come that you have resolved, but that was really you yourself analyzed and said, this one is a tough one? Have you had cases like that needed a certain approach because it was beyond?
You know, the Wesley girls case was a very tough case. That issue could have broken down this country. Because when it happened, it became immediately a religious issue. Muslims against Christians. And the tension went up so high within a few days that it needed to be handled properly. And we had to engage first the school to understand what was happening. We had to engage the PTA of the school. We had to engage the old girls of the school, because the school has a certain policy. It's also got its own history and tradition. You must understand all of these things. Then we had to engage the Methodist Church, because that's their mission school. So we engaged the Methodist Church. They're also part of the Christian Council. We had to engage the Christian Council to bring them in. Now, on the Muslim end, we had to go to the National Chief Imam. And fortunately, when we went there, we spoke to him. He said, Chairman, I've given my children to you. Go and solve your problem.
Well,
you know, so he gave us our blessing. We had to go to Parliament to meet the Muslim caucus in Parliament, both NDC and PP. And there they were one, because they were Muslims. We had spent time with them. We talked. We explained things to them. We built consensus with them. And then we came back, go to Ministry of Education. It's within their terrain to deal with the issues within the ministry. And then from the ministry, after we've done all of these things, now we had to meet the girl and the girl's parents. And they also came along with representatives of the Muslim community. So after we listened to all of those, we realized that if we had probably talked to the girl first and the parents, maybe we wouldn't have been doing all the circles. Because the story that was in the public domain was totally different from what had actually happened. But that issue was tough. And the whole Peace Council board was virtually in Accra for a month. Everybody, they all came from the regions, everybody was here. And for 1 month, we were moving from one place to the other, one place to the other, It was tough. But at the end of the day, there was calm. But it hasn't ended. After we did this, we had to then look at, because we're looking at sustainable peace, don't just solve the problem. What do you do next? So now we had to engage the missions, both Christian, Islamic, all of us come together with the Ministry of Education. What can we do to ensure that this thing doesn't come up again? So we form a committee to look at a policy to guide religious activities in the schools. And they've been working consistently over a given period. The document has been completed now. We have all now agreed. We brought it back. The ministry, the missions, SRAG, and all of those things sat in to help us draft something. We've given it now to the ministry. Ministry said we should take it back to the religious leader, let them sign the document, certifying that they all agree to it. So that's where we are now. When it's done, we're taking it back to the ministry. Wow. And if it's accepted, there's a policy now to guide what do I do as a Christian in a Muslim school? What do I do as a Muslim in a Christian school? These are things that the religious leaders have agreed on. Then we move forward as a country. So this whole thing takes a lot of time. And so sometimes people think that we are just sitting there doing nothing, you know. But then we do all of these things to ensure that the terrain is soft. But that was one of the most most difficult cases.
Wow, show some love, man. Show some love. Well, let's take a short commercial break. When he comes back, we just talked about a very, very tough situation, and what made it even tougher was that religious aspect. When we come back, let me find out whether there's been a tough situation, but it wasn't a religious thing, but this one was political, and how that was handled. And then we'll go into, there's so many other things that I want to talk to him about since he's here. So stick around. We're taking a short commercial break. When we come back, the discussion will continue. We'll be right back.
The KSM Show.
Is it the luxurious rooms? Or the serene green surroundings? Is it the tempting swimming pool? Or the classy conference room? Or the cute gift shop? Maybe it's our chef's array of cooking delights. Whichever way, it's all about Cactus Creek. A most respected hotel. 055 039 5007.
The KSM Show.
I am Alan Shematin, the founder and leader of the Movement for Change and also the leader of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, otherwise known as the Butterfly Movement. Please keep on watching the KSM Show. This is not just because he's my brother, but he's the greatest of all. Keep watching KSM.
Thank you very much. We're back, and we're getting a very engaging conversation with Reverend Dr. Samuel Edujemfi. And by the way, he has both his master's and doctorate in peace building and in conflict resolution. So you are not a square peg in a round hole. You are right there.
Right.
You know, and you trained in the U.S.
Yes.
Conflict resolution,
Yes.
peace building.
Yeah.
Before I ask you what I wanted to ask you when we come back, how much of what you have studied with peace building, conflict, are you applying to what you're doing now? You look very calm, you know. You look like when there is a conflict and you, once you appear, oh, even your demeanor, is that part of the training or you were born calm?
Well, both.
Both.
Once you do peace studies and you are conscious of what it is in the terrain, you do understand a few things that, like Patafodiaba, occasionally you have those things where there will be skirmishes here and there.
Yeah.
And it can be sometimes very challenging, you know. After the last election, before the declaration of the results, we had, for instance, a call from the NDC that they wanted the Peace Council to intervene in terms of the delay and all the things that had happened. And so we started calling the then General Secretary. He was a little evasive, but he had done a press conference. So everybody was calling, Peace Council, Peace Council, Peace Council. So we tried to find them. Around midnight, we decided to go and look for him because we thought at that time the place would be quiet, we can sit and talk. So the whole team of the council moved from our situation room, which was then in Moving Pick, to go to the NDC head office. We did not think that there would be people there at the time until we got to Adabraka and saw a sea of people at the whole place. Immediately, we were frightened that, look, this can be a dangerous terrain for us. But we had a mandate, so we went in. Myself and Mampohema were in the first car, completely labeled Peace Council. So when we got there, they opened the gate, we drove in. And as soon as we got in, somebody just shouted, Peace Council, what are you doing here? And all of this. Suddenly, the whole thing turned into a mob attack. The car had driven into the compound. The gate had been closed. The leaders were upstairs expecting us. But then something else was, the mob downstairs had reacted. They were banging the car from every angle of the car. Mampohima was at the back, I was sitting in front. And he looked at me just as I said, Chairman, why are you so quiet and so calm in such a situation? She went behind the seat. Trying to find.
You were cool.
I was just sitting there quietly.
Why?
Because it's part of those things. And if I panic, you are the leader. When you panic, then what are your followers going to do? You know. So fortunately for us, as soon as we entered, she said, let the driver reverse. In case there's any emergency, it will be easier for us to escape. By the time the guy was reversing, the mob was on us. And we had to find a way to drive out. It took the intervention of Malvi bin Sali.
Of?
Malvi bin Sali, the emir of Ahmadiyya. They were in a bus following us. So when he got down and got to the gate, the people asked, Malvi, what are you doing here? He said, open the gate. So they just listened, they opened the gate, and we had to drive. Even while we were driving up, the mob was on the car. When we came back, almost all my staff, the women, they said they are resigning, they won't work again. That this is not what they chose, they were looking for. So peace work can be frightening sometimes. And sometimes it's not just the doing of the leaders. Sometimes people are following, they have no understanding of what is going on. And for 2 days, it was a very difficult encounter for us. We did that. The leaders called, immediately they head that way. Somebody called me and said, Chairman, I hear you are here. I said, yes. I said, no, that's a dangerous place to be. You shouldn't have been there. Come to another location. So we went there to the second location.
Oh, so you changed the location?
Yeah, the following day we changed the location. And that one was worse off. The mob came into the meeting to attack us. You know. So it can be tricky sometimes for us to do this work. But it's a calling to serve our nation. So sometimes we make the sacrifices to do what we ought to do to bring stability. But in the midst of all these things, you learn lessons and then you take precautions because you are leading a group of people. These are 13 eminent members on the board, and you need to make sure that everybody is protected. And so you do the best you can to ensure that they all have security and safety.
Well, I don't know. I was going to ask when we come back from the commercial break, you talked about how difficult it was with the Wesley girls issue because of the religious, I was going to ask politically, but I don't know whether that's the answer you've given me. Would that go for the political?
Well, I think one of those.
It was one of those.
One major political issue that we've dealt with.
How does the Peace Council, as it stands now, dealing with the perception that you are poodles for government, and so every action that you're taking is, well, whether you like it or not, something that will protect the government, and they will go up and down. They'll come back to the same thing. West will go on, no mind, So how do you deal with that perception that people have, rightly or wrongly? What's your reaction to that?
I think it's a good call. People don't understand. Let me read for you what the Act says in terms of the composition of the board. And under Section 4.1, it says the governing board of the council is a board consisting of 13 eminent members as follows. 1 representative from each of the following religious bodies nominated by the bodies concerned. 1 Catholic Bishops' Conference. 2 Christian Council of Ghana. 3 Ghana Pentecostal Council. 4, National Council for Christian and Charismatic Churches, Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, Al-Sunnah Mission, Tijaniya Muslim Group, Practitioners of African Traditional Religion.
So they each have to send nominate.
Yes, I'm not done. 2 persons nominated by the president, one of whom is a woman. 2 other persons nominated by identifiable groups. 1 representative of the National House of Chiefs. Section 4.2 says that the members of the board shall elect one of their number as chairperson. 3, the chairperson and members of the board shall be appointed by the president in accordance with Article 70 of the Constitution. So, institutions nominate people to serve on the Peace Council. All the institutions have been Christian Council, Cali Bishops Conference, Pentecostal Council, Council of Charismatic Churches, Ahmadiyya, Al-Sunnah, Tijaniya, African Traditional Religion. They choose their own people. So, people have a perception as if the president just picks people and put them there. We are representatives of institutions. I represent the Christian Council. So I'm there.
They picked you.
The Christian Council picked me. And then the 13-member body, after we've been selected and sent to the Ministry of Interior, they do the background check of everyone to find out whether it's possible to serve in this high capacity. After that approval is done, the 13-member board comes together to elect the chairperson. The chairperson, we elect. In my case, it was supervised by Electoral Commission. Dr. Sribo Kweku came and did the election of 30 members to choose the chairperson. So we sit there and we determine, I nominate this, I nominate that, or I'm ready to serve, whatever. We talk a few, what can you do, how can you help, what background are you bringing, whatever. And then we vote. So we voted. So after we have voted and selected the chair, then we move as a team on that same day for the inauguration of the board. And then we go into the presidency and the president inaugurates the board. So when that is done, people have a perception as if the president gets appointed. But the act says that we are representatives of institutions. And when we talk about identifiable groups, these could come from the Bar Association, they could come from any of the CSOs, it could come from any of those things, you know. And then we have 2 nominees by the president. In the current board, the 2 nominees from the president, one is the former chaplain of the Ghana Armed Forces, retired Major Reverend Otu. And then the second person who's supposed to be should be a woman, is Nana Hema Mampong. Right. So these eminent people come together. In terms of Christian Council, Catholic, all those things, nobody has a say in whom they submit. So when people say that you are in the bosom of the government, I wonder how the government can lobby all these institutions to get the people, you know. And we come together as an independent body to do the work that we have been assigned to do. And because the choice of the chairperson comes from among us, there's nothing like the government appointed you, so you are there. Secondly, it is not a paid job. So the issue of you are in the...
It's not a paying job?
No, it's not a paid job. Really? There's no salary to the work of the Peace Council. There's no monthly salary.
So what, it's like a stipend they're giving you?
You are supposed to be paid some certain allowance. And the structure was such that initially it was supposed to have a minimum of 4 meetings in a year. So it was programmed that you have one quarter meeting and so an allowance for that meeting. That is all there is. No, nothing. We are not Article 71, 72 people. We are just ordinary members. These are asofos and imams who are serving who we brought together. So it's not a paid job. So when people sit back and say that they are chopping money and all of that, they don't know what they are talking about. We are just serving our country. Christian Council, by the time I was elected, I was the president of the Ghana Baptist Convention. And I was also the chairman of the Christian Council. But the Christian Council looked at my background and said that, look, you had this background in peace building. You can serve us better. So let's put him there. Unfortunately, when I went there, I was nominated into this position. So it's not a paid job. It's nothing. You saw me come here. I had no police. I had no driver. I drove myself.
They don't give you police.
No, I have no driver. I have no police. I remember I went somewhere. You people, when you are coming, you have your siren and you're pushing us apart. And My car has no siren. I stay in traffic like anybody else. You know.
Wow.
So we are ordinary people serving our country because
Wow.
we have a calling as priests to serve. And that's all we are doing.
Wow. And is there anybody amongst you who acts like your PR? Because I think most of the things I'm hearing, and when you talk to me, I was hearing for the first time. You know, I even joked that someone must be speaking to explain things. Do you have one,
Yes,
or is it deliberate that?
No, we have a PR department. They've been doing a lot.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you know, good news doesn't sell much.
It's not the politics.
No, it's not the hard thing. No, people want to
see.
hear the hard things. So if you
Yeah.
are not talking about hard things and trying to explain all these things soft and trying to resolve, it doesn't become attractive.
One thing I wanted to clear once that we have you here is also what I'm sorry, I even talked about that. Where have they been? All of a sudden they need $1 million. That's when it's a few months of the election. That's the only time you come alive. As you came alive a few months ago and said you need $1 million. All this time, why you doing? And then a few months of election, you come and you need $1 million or whatever you need it for. You did explain to me on the phone when we spoke, but the public needs to know because it was not just my thinking. That's a general perception. So,
well, let me first give the background to the story. We were doing the political party code of conduct committee inauguration. As part of the vigilantism work we did, conducting the vigilantism bill, the last thing that was left for us to do was to set up the political party code of conduct committee to be responsible for monitoring what the parties say, what they do, and all of those. So we inaugurated the committee. And as part of that work, they also asked questions about some of the things we were doing. We told them everything. And then they asked questions like, how do you find the money to do all those? Because what you are talking about is a lot of work. You know, is the government funding you? Do you have all the funding? And especially getting to elections, do you have all the money? So I explained to them that the budget we sent to Parliament in November last year, we're looking for something in the range of about 26 million. And the approval we got was around 11 million. And so we had a shortfall of about 15 million, which is the equivalent of $1 million. And these are documented. It's not anything hidden. It's because we took it to Parliament. All the information is there. The whole report on all our activities, what we're doing, where we were, and where we are, where we're going, everything is there. So we shared it with the parties. Unfortunately, the media who were represented took it and said, Peace Council needs $1 million, and it became an issue. But it's got to do with all the activities that we engage in. And sometimes when we talk about the Peace Council, most people look at just those of us in Accra. But we are represented in all the 16 regions and in 2 districts, you know. So there are offices in all the regions, and all of them are actively working and dealing with the 703 cases that I mentioned. Majority of them are in the regions, you know. So they're actively moving. You need to fund them. You call for meetings. They must be there. You're providing the logistics for them to go to places, to do negotiation. I remember one of the jobs we did in the Kandega Doba area. When our team got there wasn't any good hotel there. And you know the problems we have in Boko. It was difficult to stay in Boko. So they had to move outside. Every morning they drove 2 hours to where they were, to the community, and drove 2 hours back. You know, and that increases fuel cost in doing some of these negotiations. And sometimes we have to book places to meet people at very odd times. I recall when we were doing the return of the NDC back to IPAC, we booked one of our restaurants in Accra. Nobody knew what was happening there. One of our staff went quietly and booked a place, looked for a location. We went there as individuals. I went with Professor Frimpong Manson came along, Duncan Williams came. Individually, we came there. Then suddenly, the Sofa Deblay had walked in. Esedin Ketia came in. Some person came. They came as individuals. It was after the meeting that the hotel realized that something is happening here. Okay. But we have finished. We're gone. So you do all of those things, and you need quiet places where people are not easily identified, because you're also mindful of the security of what you're doing. You know, sometimes partyful soldiers say, we will not allow our leaders to meet with them and all of that. But you have to find a way. So where do you put them? Find a secret location somewhere, you pay for the hotel, you do all kinds of things to make sure they are comfortable to come there and all of those. So it requires a lot of work. And because all of us are not stationed in Accra, Bishop Fianu, for instance, comes from Ho. He is the vice president of the Bishops' Conference, and he represents the Catholics. He comes from Ho. Bishop, just forget it. The other one comes from Takrady. Mampo Hema comes from Mampo. They have others coming from different places. They travel in. You have to take care of their transportation costs. Sometimes they have to find a hotel for them to stay in for the number of days we are here doing all the things. Within the election week, even on the day of election, all those outside, as soon as they vote, in the next 2 hours, they must be in Accra, because we have our situation room here. And they have to vote immediately and get back to Accra. And we have to host them for all the period until election results are declared, until stability is established and all of those things. It takes money to do all of these things. And all this shuttling between the EC, the parties, and all of those things, people think that it just happens. It doesn't just happen. Currently, we are running a training program, you know, preparing our election monitors so that they will do the work properly. We must help them to understand conflict, political conflict, how it comes up, what do you do, how you do analysis. Because in our situation, we don't just receive information. We have, in the last election, apart from those on the field who are gathering information and bringing them to us, we have 3 stations, one in Tamale, one in Kumasi, and one in Accra. This year, we're going to deploy 3. One will be in Ho, another one will be in the north, one will be in Kumasi, and then the Accra center will be there. There are people manning all of these things. They bring information from reporters on the ground. You must first take the information. We have bloggers on the net. In the last election, we used 30 of them. Everybody with his laptop, constantly surfing the net to see what are people saying about elections, and all those things are being monitored on all the social media handles. We are looking at all of those things. So we know what people are writing. They pick all the information, then they take it to our analysis station. We have CID, we have lawyers, we have all those things there to analyze the information. Is it credible? And if they find that information is credible, it is brought to us in the decision room for us to decide what do we do with this information. So, for instance, ballot papers are not in a certain location. We call the EC immediately. We have a hotline with them. DC, this is what is happening. Can you make sure it's done? Indelible ink is not there. Polling has not started in this space. So they extend the polling time. We do all of those things, you know, and we are constantly monitoring. Every hour we do a press conference. We update the public what is going on and all of that. And you need money to run all of those things. So that was the basis of the 1 million. Okay. It is not just that we are going to chop anything. There's nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wow. Show some love, man. Whoa. That's and sitting here, I just want to give you an opportunity to look directly into, before I get to the other phase that is not the official phase, right. Your businessman side, or used to be businessman side. Can you tell Ghanaians we should relax? Well, do you get any sense that this election is going to be more tense than any other, or we are everything is under control?
Well, I think Ghanaians should stay relaxed. We've been through these experiences before, and we'll sail through. There are institutions doing a lot of work. You know, from where I came from, if you look at the number of conferences going on there, you'll be amazed. About 5 different conferences in that's one hotel, you know. So a lot of work is being done to ensure that there is stability, there is peace. People can go about their work and vote peacefully. We're talking to all the individuals who matter. Let us comport ourselves. You have a right to vote on the day of election. Just go and cast your vote and go home when it's about for counting to begin. If you want to come and observe, you have a right to come in there and observe. The processes of voting itself, some people don't even understand. Even in our own conference, we're trying. CSO leaders, some of them didn't even understand the thing. But on the day of election, let me even begin from what they are doing now. They publish the statistics of election. and they're giving it to the parties. And what that means is that they are showing each polling station how many people are registered there, what is the number, and all of those. All the parties have it. Based on that, they are doing the printing of the ballot papers. Ballot paper printing involves observers from the parties. All the parties send their people to the ballot printing press 24/7 until the ballot is fully printed. Then, when it's done, they move them to police armory. The parties go with them to see where it is kept. The EC puts a seal on it. The parties can put their seal on the ballot papers where they are kept in the police armory. On the day they are moved, the parties are there to ensure that it's moved to wherever they are going. They send their reps to be there. When they are received there, their reps are there. It's kept another police armory. The parties can put their seal on it. On the day of election, when they are released, they come to everywhere. All parties have their reps there. At least if parties are not there at all, not MPP and NDC, they are everywhere. The minor parties may not be able to put people in everywhere. On election day, transparent ballot box is open. Everybody sees it. It's closed, locked, sealed. You go to the biometric machine. You press it, it should read 00, indicating that nobody has used it. The biometric machine is polling station specific. It's only programmed for this particular polling station. You finish the voting. Everybody is there. By the time before you start counting what is in the box, you should press the biometric machine to show you how many people have been verified. Let's say 400 people verified. How many people were verified manually because their fingerprints could not be picked or whatever. So the parties agree, we verify this person manually. We know that. So manual verification, 5. Electronic verification, 400. Put the two together, 405. When we open the box, we must get 405 ballots. If we get 405, matter closed. In addition to that, when they take the ballot paper, they are supposed to turn the back and stamp it. In the past, some of the things that used to happen was that some people, when they are tearing the paper, they can tear about 2 or 3 and give it to one person. Once you turn the back to stamp them, you cannot stamp 3 while everybody is watching and give it to one person. It don't happen. So you may probably only be able to stamp 1. Any foreign material that is found in the box without a stamp, it means that it's a foreign material. It's not supposed to be there. You know, at the declaration of the results for this election, a copy of the pink sheet is pasted at the polling station for everybody to see. That is the rule now. Anybody can take a picture of it. And any party that has a system should be able to collate all of these things by WhatsApp or whatever it is to your center. By the time you get to the Central Coalition Center, the party must know their position. It's so simple. So sometimes
has it always been this simple, or this is new things that you have just introduced?
This is how we have evolved. After all the things we've done, no, this is how we have evolved. Take security, for instance. We did all the consultations with a dialogue we had with the police, the parties, and all the things that we did. You know, Asin North was a test. You saw how Asin North went. If the police tested all the things they think they can do, and it worked, we are hoping that they can deploy the same thing across the country. If they are, we are fine. You know, so I think that the Ghanaian public must follow what is going on. And sometimes I ask myself, we go to the same training with the parties, to the EC forum. We understand these things. So if the parties come to tell us that they don't understand the thing, I wonder, and then they will call me and say, what is Peace Council saying? We were all in the training. Why do I understand it, but you don't understand it? So sometimes, some of the things are deliberate. That tell the grassroots something else, and then we'll do something else so that we instigate them. But these are the real facts. We did a training in Tamale. We had a dialogue in Tamale. We had another one in Kumasi. We brought EC there. We brought the police to tell their own stories, how they are going to do all the things. We have 3 more. There's one in Ho coming. There's another going to be in Cape Coast, and then the final one will be in Accra. You know. So all these things are done where we bring the parties involved there to tell the public have the right to ask questions. And so you come again and the parties look at you and say, we don't understand. I remember in the Kumasi forum, when we finished the whole forum, the NDC Students Union, MPP Students Union who were there were confused. They came to me and said, Chairman, we are confused. I said, why are you confused? He said, the things they are telling us and what we are hearing here are two different things. I said, yeah, this is the fact. This is the fact. So sometimes there's something that is thrown into public, people get confused, and everybody starts fighting. But you need to simply listen to the facts. From the processes, this is how it's supposed to be. So at the end of pool, anybody party rep who is at any given station, just take a picture of what it is, send it to your central thing. By the time you get to central coalition, you already have your figures. And for this election, I expect that any party that has a system, by 1 a.m. of the voting day, you must know whether you won or lost.
You should know your
You should know your half-hour. And leave us alone and let's have our peace of mind and live as a people.
Show some love, man. Show some love. Wow. That is amazing. Reverend, I have to have a different time for you to come in to talk about other things. But just for, I think I have a few minutes left.
Right.
Let me get it, because you are an entrepreneur, you are an artist, you are a creative. At one time, were you producing records and DVDs? Tell me a little bit about that aspect of you before we let you go.
Right. When I left school, I practiced as an accountant. I went to IPS then, now UPSA. And
so you had...
Yeah, I went to
IPS, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
74 to 78, I was in IPS, Then left and went to practice for 12 years. Then I shifted into private business. But then later on transitioned into manufacturing. And so we brought in equipment in 1992 to start producing cassettes. We're doing cassette assembling here.
Really?
Oh, yeah, we're doing the cassette assembling here. And we started, and City Rock came in. Then later on, SKD came in. Then we had Ghana Sounds coming in, and all those guys. They came to meet us here. We started those things.
You were multimedia?
Multimedia.
You were multimedia?
Yes.
Show some love, man. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was doing bivocational ministry. I was doing my pastoral work and also running my business. So I was doing the business support my work.
Your work there.
My work, So we started those things from 88 and then on the 92. Between 88 and 92, we're doing more of bringing the cassettes in. Recall in those days, cassettes coming to a country were 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes. Music production was 35 minutes, 32, 35 minutes. So we had to find a way out. How do you resolve this? Initially, most of the producers like Rex Abut and others were cutting tapes and pulling them off and joining them and all of those things. So we introduced 45-minute cassettes first. So I was bringing them from South Korea and became the agent for General Sung-Yong Magnetics, simply called SKC. So I brought the SKC.
You were the agent?
Yeah, I was the agent for SKC.
Wow.
So I brought those tapes in. We started with 45 minutes. And so they did the 35 minutes and then they repeated one or two songs on one side to balance it off. But by 92, I noticed that wasn't a good process. The best we could do was bring in the equipment and start doing the assembling here. So I spoke to the Korean company I was working with. And then they said, well, the equipment to do these things. So they introduced me to those things. We brought some of them in. We brought one unit to start with. And so we're doing 400 cassettes every hour. That was how we started. And gradually, we increased the line until at the point we're doing about 20,000 cassettes a day. Then that one evolved. So we started with just reloading the cassettes. Then we brought the equipment to do the recording. We do the mastering. I had my own studio there. We do the mastering. We do the looping recording, and then we cut them into the shell. We brought the equipment to do the labeling. And then we did all of those things. Then along the line, I went to one of my trips on a trade fair in Seoul. And then the guys introduced me to One-to-One magazine, which was a magazine on the industry. I had never heard of it. I said, do you subscribe to it? And I said, no. I said, look, you can't be in this industry when you don't know One-to-One.
Wow.
So I was in my hotel. He brought about 10 copies. I glanced through. I saw various kinds of equipment. I said, wow, I had no idea these things existed. So we transitioned. But reading through One-to-One in the early 90s, they projected that by 2010, cassettes will be extinct in Africa. So then the question was, what do you do? Because you're in business and you must begin to think ahead. Then we looked at CDs. I went to the first fair in Singapore and then looked at the equipment. That time, Lyrac had equipment. you needed a basic $1 million to start. We didn't have that money. So the question is, what do we do? So we went in and brought duplicating tapes from the US, duplicating CD duplicators. And we brought a few to start with. So when Reggie came in, the first one with, Reggie, I've forgotten the song. No, we did the first CDs for him.
You did the first
Oh yeah,
CD?
we did the first CDs for Reggie Rockstone. No. So then we added on to those. And we added a few more slaves and started expanding that whole business.
Who are some of the people you worked with that you remember?
Who? Oh, almost everybody.
Everybody?
I mean,
Because you're the only one.
Yeah, I mean, I introduced Dacibre to Slip Music. Yeah, Dacibre was recording at that. He had done 4 recordings and I was not picking up. And then when he brought Kokoko, we called Mark. I said, Mark, we've got something here. Mark was with Joy then. I said, we've got something, we think you can try it. He said, can you do 500? He said, no, let's do 5,000 to start with. We'll do it on credit for you. Mark took it out to the market, to Cantamanto. 2 hours, everything was gone. He called back and said we're in trouble.
Wow.
So we did all of those, both gospels, secular, Set Frimpong, Tic Tac, Lord Kenya, because they were all
Oh, my goodness.
Ex-Do, I mean, those old guys were all there.
Wow.
Pat Thomas, C.K. Man, Bessa Simons. We did all those things for them. And then I was doing the other side of the Gospels, Tego Sisters, Daughters of Glorious Jesus. I mentioned Set Frimpong, Joyful Way, because I had been a member of Joyful Way.
Oh, you were a member?
Yes, my member.
You were a singer or you played an instrument?
I used to do the mix and the sound control for Joyful Way.
Okay.
At live programs. I was then the music producer for Joyful Way. I'd come from another group in Kumasi called New Creation, which was similar to Joyful Way. Joyful Way started in 1972, we started in 75. But my wife was an original member of Joyful Way. They started in 72. So when we moved
Share some love, man.
So
wow.
we did all of those things, Daughters, others. I mean, we did all of those things. And then we're also producing sermons for ICGC. I mean, most of the times they did their conferences like Greater Works. We were producing all the tapes for them.
Tapes.
Yeah, as soon as the sermon is done, they bring it to us.
Ready.
It's ready, they bring it to us. We do the mastering, we do the mass production. We do the same thing for Church of Pentecost, the annual conventions. We're producing tapes, blank tapes and recorded tapes for all of them. So we're in all of those things.
Wow. And all this time, were you in the ministry?
Oh, yeah. I was a pastor in Taifa, Baptist Church in Taifa. I was,
oh, wow.
Yes, a senior pastor there and doing ministry.
Pastor businessman. Wow. Really?
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on just the pastoral issue and leave the business behind, or you're still combining both?
Well, I did the combination for 17 years. And at the time the church was growing, the attention was developing. I had not only become a local pastor, but also the ministers' conference had also elected me as their president. So I was overseeing the work of most of the pastors in Ghana as far as the Baptist work was concerned. It was becoming demanding. So it took me 6 years to actually step out. For sometimes I tell them that no, this year, at the end of this year, I'm going. And then something happens, you have to come back. And especially when the transitioning was coming, moving from cassettes to CDs, and then Blu-rays came in, and then all those things were happening, you know. So then we had to find a way to exit. Then we're transitioning the business. So the first thing I did was to bring LED TVs. I had a guy in China who did them for me and wanted to brand them. And we worked with people like Tala and all of those things. We were with them from the beginning. Then I brought in the car TVs. You know, they have a system. You take the old TV radio system, you can slot it in, you press, and then a slot comes out. You have a TV, you can play videos and all of those things. I sold a little of them.
You're a businessman, oh.
Then I went into car headlights. I brought what they used to call the blue bulbs. Then I introduced HID bulbs. Those were the things of the thing. I was the first to introduce some of those because I had those connections in China, and I did them. But at the end of 2005, I felt like, look, I think I needed to give up.
Really?
Yeah.
So you moved?
Yes. So I handed over completely and to my partner who was then, but he also went into politics. Then I went to the States to do further studies. You know, so I had to find some other means to survive than being in the business. Right?
So now you're full-time ministry, you're chairman for the Peace Council, and you follow into that every now and then, or you are completely out of it?
Right now, I'm on retirement in terms of we retire at 65, but I went beyond that because I was the president of the convention. Our complete retirement age is 70, and so right now I've actually officially retired. So I'm just in a local church supporting. But once I finish my Peace Council work, I just go home and then rest.
Show some love, man. Revo, it's been so exciting having you. Yeah. Really, really, really. I'm so impressed to have met you, you know. I was even more impressed when we spoke over the phone, and your calm demeanor. You know, I said, this man must come on the show. I spoke to my producer and I said, well, you know, we bash them. I am not going to exclude myself. We bash you guys a lot. You know, but when I spoke to you and I realized there's a whole lot more, you know, and the politics aspect was not like the main thing, I just thought I should have you on for you to talk to Ghanaians, let them understand what you're doing with that little pay. It's not like there's some cash flowing in there. No. You know.
I mean, it's surprising that people have all those thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes some people may look at you as a person, but if you know the background as I've shared, you know, you've lived your life, you've done all kinds of things, now you're settled. That's right. You know, but because you're a pastor, people don't see that side of you, except those who know that. Then they'll say, okay, we knew this man. I remember I was in Peace FM one of the days, and this thing came out. I was talking to Father Dixon. Father said, well, you, since when you started wearing suits, where were these people for them to be saying that?
He knows.
He knows, because I worked with them, you know, and all the work we did with Despite and everything, we were there and we worked with Father consistently. So we've been there, but for the sake of ministry, sometimes you have to comport yourself, and then people say all manner of things. You just listen to them and move on. You know?
Wow. Okay, before I let you go, we have just 1 minute. Your final message. This is your camera here, directed to Ghanaians as the chairman of the Peace Council. Your final few words that you want to give us.
I want to appeal to all Ghanaians. This is the only country we have. We have no other place to go to. And therefore, let us do whatever we can to protect the peace, the security, and the stability of our country. And I want to appeal to every one of us. Let us do the best we can and not allow politics to divide us. We are one people with one nation. Whether we are Christians or Muslims or other religion, we existed before all these things came in. And therefore, we must live as Ghanaians, love each other, and work as Ghanaians, and not allow politics to divide us. At the end of politics, we'll still come back to the same family. And therefore, let us not allow politics to divide us. On the day of election, just go and vote peacefully. Let the results be declared. Whoever leads us, let's pray for him or her that this country will be peaceful, that we can all live in and enjoy our lives. God bless you.
All right, folks. I mean, what a better way to end than with the chairman of the Peace Council giving a message of peace to all of you as we get closer and closer to the voting date. Revo, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you here. And folks, until we come back next week with another enlightening, educational, and fantastic experience, KSM signing off in the words that I always use. I am out, or let the whole world say,
The KSM Show.